Funding for New York Now is provided by WNET. Additional funding provided by the Leo Cox Beach Philanthropic Foundation.
CSEA.
I love my job just because it's such an awesome way to give back to the community. Knowing that I can help out and knowing that I do every day makes me feel great. The work that I do is shaping the community in a really positive way, and I'm really proud of that.
Winner of a New York State Emmy for Best Political Program. This is New York Now.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to New York Now. I'm Matt Ryan.
And I'm Casey Seiler from the Times-Union. New York's scandal season rolls on as only 4 weeks remain in the legislative session.
First off, many of you hopefully went to the polls on Tuesday to vote on your local school budget. Right now, we're going to turn things over to Karen DeWitt, who has a special guest in studio to discuss the statewide results.
Tim Kramer, welcome again to New York Now.
Thank you, Karen.
So we had the school budget and school board votes this week. The vast majority of school budgets were approved. What do you attribute that to?
98.5% were approved.
That's very high.
And of course, if you stayed at or below your cap, almost 100%, 99%. That has got to be because these budget votes that were put forward, these spending plans that were put forward, were so low. They were less than 1% on average for the tax levy increase. But the real story was the fact that there were 36 school budget votes put forward that had a tax levy limit that was beyond their tax cap.
Yeah, 36 wanted to get voters to override the tax cap. They needed a supermajority under the rules, of 60% approval. And what happened?
78% of those passed, which is amazing. Last year, I think the number that were put forward were 18 versus 36 this year, and only 61% of those passed. And since the beginning of the tax cap, only about a little over 50% of those ones that had to pierce the cap that exceeded their limit have been successful. So the fact that we got 78% this year is a big deal.
Well, do you think that's going to encourage other school districts to try and override? I mean, 36 is still pretty small. We have about 700 school districts in the state, so it's still a small number. But do you think this might encourage others to say, hey, try it?
Maybe. These were districts that felt as if, we just can't live within our cap. We guess it's too tight. And to what extent other districts would now be compelled to roll the dice, I'm not so sure. But I do think that this says that some voters, at least, are willing to say, you know what, this cap has become onerous. And we're willing to take our chances and forego this slight rebate check, because if you go beyond the cap, you don't get that rebate check that would be the difference of the increase. And I think we may see more and more communities saying, we've got this.
Now, probably everyone doesn't know as much about the rules of the property tax cap as I do, and certainly you do. So let's back up a bit and talk about it. It was approved 5 years ago. It's a 2% per year tax cap, or the rate of inflation. I think at the time it was passed, people thought, well, schools can increase their spending by 2% a year. They didn't account for inflation being at near zero this year. So you would think, okay, inflation rate is zero. Why can't schools' budgets be flat?
Well, they could be.
When those costs affect you as well?
Absolutely. The first couple years, it was the rate of inflation was above 2%, so the tax cap was at 2%. Since then, the rate of inflation has been below 2%, so obviously our school budget, our school tax levy limits have started at less than 2%. We, as an organization, would prefer, let's just call it 2% at 2% and make it at 2%. So it's 2% every year.
But I guess what I'm getting at is, are your costs rising at the rate of inflation? Or are there costs that schools pay that are higher than inflation, that they're above the average rate of inflation?
Most of our costs are above the rate of inflation. Healthcare costs are rising at above the rate of inflation.
And that's healthcare to pay all the employees and the pensioners and all that, right?
Right. Yeah. Our labor costs, we have negotiated agreements, and they typically offer contractual agreements that are oftentimes above the rate of inflation. When they start getting rolled out, we have a regular automatic step increase per year for most people on the salary schedule, most teachers on the salary schedule, that is oftentimes around 2%. That's above the rate of inflation right there.
Yeah, so that's why we're seeing a bit of this crunch with people wanting this override, correct?
I think so. I don't want to suggest that the state didn't do its part here. We got a good bump in state aid
Well,
this
that's
year.
a good point, because the state has been running a surplus with these bank settlements, billions of dollars
Right.
in surplus each year. So it's been record amounts of school aid. Now, has that helped a lot?
It had to have helped this year because we could not have put together these budgets that we did with such a small amount of increase at the local level had we not had this infusion of state aid. The question before us now is that sustainable? We can keep those budgets pretty low at the local level, those spending increases low at the local level, if we have a fairly sizable infusion of state aid to accommodate our increased costs. But if that state aid doesn't come through as it did this year, we're going to have a real problem.
Well, that's the big question. What if we have a recession again? I mean, we do have them periodically. It might not be as bad as 2008, where they had to slash everything by billions of dollars, but you can't count on a multi-billion-dollar surplus in the state every year. So if we have a recession, then what happens to schools who may be able to only raise taxes by 0.12% or something like that?
Right. Our experience is pretty recent. When we went through this, many cuts, loss of all kinds of personnel and programs, things that were good for kids. The gap elimination adjustment was brought in and paid off this year, by the way. So we're very happy about that. We'd rather not go back to those days.
I also want to talk to you about the Common Core and the associated tests and the controversy. It doesn't seem as intense this year, although a lot of students still opted out of the test. Do you have any numbers of how many opted out? The tests were given in late April, right, about a month ago. Do you have any sense of if as many people opted out this year as last year?
We have a sense of it, but we don't have real numbers, and we won't have real numbers till probably later in the year, which tells you something to your point. It just hasn't had that intense sort of attention given to it as it did last year when it was this new story and we had 20% opt-out rates.
People were really angry.
They were really angry, and they're still angry, and the opt-out rates are not going to be much less than they were last year. It just hasn't had the intense, I guess, publicity that it had a year ago.
Well, also the tests don't have an effect on teachers or students. There's been a moratorium because of the controversy last year. So these tests don't really count for anything.
And I'm hoping that people recognize that there is work being done to try to make this system right. We've reduced the number of questions. We've made the amount of time the kids have available to them no longer limited. They can spend as much time as long as they're working productively. The moratorium has limited the consequences of the use of that information in grading students and also in evaluating teachers and principals. So there is progress being made in trying to attend to the interests of the opt-out supporters. We probably haven't satisfied all of their needs yet, but maybe they are starting to recognize that movement's going in the right direction. The new chancellor, Chancellor Rosa,
That's right. We have a
certainly
new
seems to be
chancellor.
in supportive of at least akin to some of the sentiments from the opt-out people. And my guess is that maybe she is working more closely with them and saying, look, let's work together on this, and maybe that's brought down the temperature.
Now, there were school board elections this week as well, and some were backed by the opt-out movement, and they won, correct? So that's
right.
also going to change the atmosphere, don't you think?
Yeah, I suppose my membership is going to be looking at things a little differently. We do know that people who ran for the school board had the support sometimes of organizations that were seeking we're supporting opting out of standardized tests. And we know the teachers union has become more engaged each year in trying to win over vacant board seats. And so my guess is that we're going to see more and more people on school boards who are either professional educators or people in support of the opting out movement. That doesn't mean that they are going to change completely the agenda, but it does mean that we're going to have to be attentive to perhaps some new way of thinking among some of my members.
Yeah, there's another factor that's different. Governor Cuomo last year really inserted himself into the whole education policy. He had a war with the teachers union. He's totally backed off this year. Do you think that's calmed things down a little bit too?
Absolutely. He saw that this was toxic for him as a politician, as did other members of the legislature, and they certainly have backed away, pushed everything back over to the state education department, the Board of Regents, said, here, this hot potato is yours, take it from here.
Yeah, now it's back to the Board of Regents. And how do you think that they are handling it so far? They have a task force now to look at maybe different ways of evaluating students and teachers instead of just the tests. So it seems like the pendulum's kind of swinging back away from all this intense focus on testing that's been so controversial.
I think the regents are doing what they can, but a lot of this is not necessarily regulatory. There is legislation that's still in place today that limits what the regents can and cannot do. So they can take it so far, and I think they're trying to do that. But there are pieces of legislation, the Education Transformation Act that was passed last year is one that has caused a lot of pushback from people at the local level, and the regents can't really do anything about
Well,
that.
that's the one that's put the moratorium. So theoretically, in what, 2020, this whole system that was so controversial would kick back in, correct?
Well, that's true.
So they would need to change that unless this controversy is going to erupt again, right?
Well, the big thing in all of this, and certainly was part of that Transformation Act, was the teacher and principal evaluations. And this idea of going from like a 20% link to student performance to a 50% student growth score, that really blew the cap off everybody, off everything. And now what we at school district level are required to do is renegotiate our annual professional performance review system, our EPPRs, by September 1, or we might jeopardize our state aid increases to the tune of as much as $2.3 billion.
That's right. That has not been resolved yet.
That has
So there
not been
are a lot of
resolved.
unresolved issues here, even though it seems calmer.
We would love to see the legislature deal with that this year. I don't know
Do you
if
think they
have
will? There's 3 weeks left, and they seem, a little bit preoccupied because there's all kinds of scandals and controversies going on right now. Do you see them walking back that law that they passed in March of last year? Finally
I don't know.
walking it back.
I could see one house or the other perhaps doing something. There are many bills that are out there attending to this. But then there is the governor, and this was a signature issue of the governor's, and to what extent he is willing to sign legislation that would undo that 50% versus 20% link. I'm not sure, and we're trying to convince
it's one thing
him.
for him to kind of back off and not be in the controversy, but to undo something that he at the time said was one of his legacy issues.
That's right.
Might be a little difficult to do.
Yeah.
Well, we'll have to see how that goes in the next few weeks. Thanks very much for joining us, Tim Creamer of the School Boards Association.
Thank you, Karen.
All right, our poll question this week: do you think the property tax cap is working? Let us know how you feel. A lot of people have already voted, and you can too by going to nynow.org.
By 2020, the United States will have 193,000 nurses that are needed. Right now, that's what they think the shortage looks like. That's a lot of nurses.
Last week, we brought you the story on the anticipated nursing shortage in the coming years and wanted to know how concerned you were about it. And here are the results. 55% said very concerned, somewhat 20%. Not very concerned, 25%. Terry in New York City told us, I was the caregiver for my mother who had dementia for 3 years, and most didn't have any training to deal with an aging population. Clara on Staten Island, oftentimes it is the nurse who is the primary care provider in public schools, nursing homes, urgent care centers, and hospitals. They're the link between patient and physician. And finally, Gerhardt in Buffalo said, healthcare truly matters, and it is a necessary function of government to oversee its fair distribution to all. Thanks so much for telling us how you feel. To do so, again, the address is nynow.org. While you're there, you can check out links to us on Facebook, Flickr, and Twitter, where our handle is at nynow_PBS. You'll also find a pathway to the Capitol Confidential blog run by Casey and his crew, which can also be found at timesunion.org. KCBS.com. All right, speaking of Casey, he's going to take us through the end of the program by leading our Reporters Roundtable.
All right, I am happy to be joined at the Reporters Roundtable by, from my own paper, the Times-Union, Matt Hamilton, and recently voted by City and State the 41st most powerful person in New York State, Ken Lovett of the Daily News. Congratulations, Ken. Let's move to the person at the top of the power list, Governor Andrew Cuomo, who tried to emerge from his defensive crouch this week after the scandal that is enveloping his former top aide Joe Percoco and lobbyist Todd Howe. He met with legislative leaders early in the week. Matt, I think you were there when they popped out. Are they going to be able to get anything done, and if so, what?
Well, booze at brunch is probably going to get done, but I assume you're talking about ethics reforms, and I will probably do pension forfeiture. That seems like a measure that, while there still isn't quite a consensus between the Assembly and the Senate on, it seems like it's the low-hanging fruit to pick off. But the other bigger things, I mean, it seems like there should be more discussions or more, coming out about closed-door discussions about other things at this point. And with 4 weeks left in session, I mean, I'm not hearing
I
much.
think there'll be, a lot of second-tier items. Some will say first-tier. Look, they have to do some kind of mayoral control bill for New York City. I think there'll be a small ethics thing, and even the governor was tamping down expectations about that this week, saying, I want a robust package, but the will doesn't seem to be there. I think they'll do fantasy sports, a bill that would legalize that. That should be going quickly. There may be a bill to... The New York City recently enacted a 5-cent tax on plastic bags. The legislature is fast-tracking seemingly a bill that might take that away. So, there's going to be those kind of things, but there's nothing on the agenda that has to get done,
right,
other than mayoral control, which expires. So, they'll do enough and then they're going to leave.
Pension reform, or specifically pension forfeiture, which, once again, to be clear, would affect lawmakers who came into the system before 2011,
yes,
I believe, basically would say that all elected officials, as well as kind of top policymakers, could have their pensions taken away if they're convicted of a crime that goes to their public position. That was something that was part of the governor's ultimatum last year. He said it needed to get done in the budget, introduced it after the arrest of Sheldon Silver. It ended up being a classic dispute between the two legislative houses. The governor, as you both have noted, is saying this is something that we might be able to get done this year, but I mean, it was supposed to get done a year ago.
Well, and when we say get done, let's not forget, it's a constitutional amendment.
Yeah.
So what ends up having to happen is they have to pass it this year, and then they have to pass it next year, and then voters would vote on it. Yeah, look, they had a deal, or they thought they had a deal last year. They announced a deal on it last year, and then the Assembly heard a lot from the unions who were not happy. The Assembly basically wants to limit it to lawmakers and other high-ranking officials maybe, but the unions are afraid that it would affect rank and file workers. And some could make the argument, well, why shouldn't it? If they commit a felony, why should they keep their pensions?
The Senate is just really dug in on this. I mean, when the leaders emerged on Monday, we asked Senator John Flanagan about, what's the deal with pension forfeiture, and he said, we had a deal last year. The governor and the Senate are on the same page. It's the Assembly that isn't getting on board, and he doesn't seem willing to at least publicly negotiate a different deal than what they came up with.
Another ripple from the investigation is the hesitation, the week-long delay so far in the approval by the Public Authorities Control Board, a little-known entity, representatives of the Budget Division, which means the governor as well as the Assembly Speaker and the Senate Majority Leadership, that needs to approve $485 million in state funding for the Buffalo Billion. That has been held up. The governor said, well, it's merely due to scheduling.
Look, people are afraid this project is under federal investigation, but the reality is the project's already underway. And I just can't imagine they're going to hold up the funding ultimately, because first of all, the Assembly, the Speaker said we're doing our due diligence, but we don't want to hurt Buffalo. And there's going to be a key Senate race in the Buffalo area, and there's a big fight for control of the Senate this year in the elections, and I can't imagine that the state Senate Republicans now are going to kill a project that has reverberations on the election.
And so the holdup is kind of kabuki.
Probably.
Yeah. Somebody who I think it's fair to say had a worse week than the governor this week was Mayor Bill de Blasio. You mentioned the fact that mayoral control is now up for review. He did not show up to a Senate hearing in the city on that issue. He showed up in Albany, but not in the city.
And he got slapped by the Senate Majority Leader, John Flanagan, for it, saying, you know, if he's serious about this, he should be here talking about it. Not that Flanagan was at the meeting either, but he said that the day the mayor announced he wouldn't be there. Also, what we saw was the Assembly passed a 3-year version of an extension of the bill. The mayor originally wanted 7 years. The governor had pushed for 3, and now the Assembly's on board with that. Most people think it's going to end up being a 1 or 2 year extension. Look, the mayor is warring not only with the governor, but he's warring with the Senate Republicans, and they're going to torture him on this, and it would not surprise me if they extended another year or 2.
On top of that, the mayor has been pressed on revealing communications with many of the consultants, and in response, he deemed many of his top outside private consultants to be agents of the city.
Yeah, it's one of them has been subpoenaed already, a guy named Jonathan Rosen, who's a big-time consultant down in the city and one of the mayor's closest advisors outside the administration. But apparently they are now taking the private protections and putting it to people close to the mayor, even if they're not paid by the city, they don't get any money from the city. It's going to be challenged in court, I am sure. And we saw a similar situation where the courts ruled against a public official who did it. So I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up having to give up those.
And I mean, at the state level, we live in an era where it's all about the transparency. I mean, we're talking about ethics reform all the time. There's scandal. I mean, the mayor was wrapped up in multiple investigations. And so, I mean, isn't it a little tone deaf to say, you know, it's a consultant that's an agent of the city, so I'm not going to show you communications?
Right, it means their communications are exempt from FOIL law requests from journalists.
I mean, even if it is legally sound, it just seems tone deaf.
It's also a mayor who promised to do different. I'm going to be transparent. You know, a lot of the stuff, you know, he wants campaign finance reform, and yet he's being investigated for a lot of the same chicanery that's been going on for years and years.
And his defense, exactly to your point, is, well, this same kind of technique, strategy has been going on for years and years, used by people in other parties as well.
But he may have gone a little further, but even if he didn't go further than what other people did, first of all, the optics look bad for a mayor who promised change, but beyond that, Preet Bharara, the U.S. attorney, and others who are investigating are now pushing the line. So what was acceptable even 5, 6, 7 years ago is no longer acceptable to prosecutors. And this is a mayor who promised better and different and holds himself higher above people. And what we're seeing now is almost like a persecution complex, because his whole argument is so much of this is politically motivated. You know, anything that has to do with the state, he's pinning it on Cuomo because of that war. And he's not taking any responsibility for what might, even if it's legal by the definition, he's not taking any responsibility for how it looks or for going back on what he said he wanted to do.
Ken, the Daily News has been embarked on an old school tabloid campaign to get Albany to respond to the requests of advocates for sexual abuse victims, those who were abused as children. They want to see changes in the laws that govern when civil actions can be brought against either abusers or the institutions that they used to work for. This seems to be getting traction now, especially with the governor.
Yeah, for the first time, the governor, a day after, he was asked about it, and he kind of gave a tepid response publicly, and some victims really called him out on it, and it was a front page. And the next day, he came out, his people, and gave a statement saying that, yes, he wants something done this legislative session. What he would like to do is extend the civil statute of limitations to bring a civil case, which right now you have until you turn 23 years old if you were abused as a child. He wants to extend that. We don't know how long. He wants to do away entirely with the criminal civil statute of limitation. We're not sure where he stands on a big issue for the advocates, which is a look back, to give people where the statute of limitation has already run out for them a year to bring a civil suit. And he'd also like to make it, try and treat the public schools the same as the privates, because right now, for a private, like I said, you have up until 23 years old. A public, you have 90 days from the time of the incident to tell a public entity that I'm going to sue you for this.
What about the Senate? Is the Senate likely to get on board now?
The Senate is really, both the Senate and the Assembly are resistant. They don't like the idea of the one-year look back. They think it could bankrupt and financially harm a lot of institutions, including the Catholic Church and the Boy Scouts. It's going to be a tough one. We'll see. I think it's going to go down to the wire. There may be something done now that the governor's on board, but we'll see how hard he really pushes it or if he's just saying it to get the heat off him.
All right, all three of us are in the LCA show coming up next Monday and Tuesday. I wish you all to break a leg. Thanks very much to Ken Lovett from the Daily News and Matt Hamilton from the Times-Union. All right, we leave you today with video of the Mohawk River right where it divides Albany and Saratoga counties. For Matt Ryan and everyone here at New York Now, thank you for watching, and we hope to see you again next week right here on PBS.
Funding for New York Now is provided by WNET. Additional funding provided by the Leo Cox Beach Philanthropic Foundation.
Caring about people is what I do. It's in my blood. And if they need a little extra care, someone with compassion has to do it. Why not me? This makes me a better mother, a better wife, and a better person in my community.